Hi everyone, welcome. It's Betty and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to make a variation of a type of cinnamon bun, but I guess really can't call it cinnamon bun because we're going to be filling it with cream cheese and pumpkin spice. Yum. Anyway, let's get started with making our dough because that's going to be the first thing we're going to need to do. Okay, so to get started, I've got my bowl here with 3¼ cups all-purpose flour and a teaspoon of salt. So in a bowl here, I have 5 tablespoons of sugar, and on that I will be pouring some warm milk. And that is 1 cup of whole milk. Ideally, you want to use whole milk. We're going to give this a stir and bring in the yeast. Give this a bit of a stir. Make sure we get our sugar dissolved. You'll be able to feel it at the bottom here. Just like that. And we're going to add 1 tablespoon, and it does seem like a lot, but a whole tablespoon of yeast. We're just going to sprinkle it on top and give that a minute just to make sure that our yeast is active. And so you just let it sit for 5 minutes and it should get a nice foam on top. And that way you know your yeast is doing its job. As you can see, the yeast has bloomed beautifully, and so that is ready to go. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pour that right into our flour mixture. Just to get the salt mixed through, I put this on, and we're going to pour the milk and the yeast, sugar all right in here, and let that work on low. Let that get all together. Just scraping the bowl down. And that will start to slowly come together. We're going to also add 2 eggs. And while that mixes, I have a stick of butter, which is 1/2 cup, which we will put in 1 tablespoon increments. And it's very, very soft. You want this very, very soft. I'm just going to dab that in there. You want to make sure after each tablespoon is added, it gets incorporated well. I might have to turn this up just a tiny bit. Just like that, and you just watch to make sure that the butter gets all the way through. And then add the next tablespoon till you get it all in. You'll see that the butter, I've got all the butter in, and the dough itself, I'm hoping you can actually see right in there, is very, very soft. That's what you'll expect. Now we're going to let this run for about 5 minutes, and we'll take a look at the texture change. You're going to have to scrape the sides down intermittently in that 5 minutes to make sure that everything gets beaten in well. Okay? So while this is beating for the 5 minutes on medium, just so you're aware, you're going to get a bowl for it. I'm just spraying it with some oil. And you're just going to rub it down to get it ready for when it's done. We'll need to take it out of that bowl and place it in a well-oiled separate bowl because this dough is super sticky. All right, so have that ready on the side for when your dough is ready. All right, so the 5 minutes has passed, and I did scrape it down a few times, and you're going to see that just the texture of the dough is a lot more silky and smooth than it was when we started, and that's what you want to be looking for. I'll just get my camera back clipped on here. So we can turn this off, this up. You can see my spatula that I've been using to scrape the dough down, and we've got our bowl all ready for the transfer. So you want to get all of this off the paddle as much as you can. And you're going to use, it is a very sticky dough, okay? Just so you're aware, it's, if you see that it's like, oh my gosh, I can't form this into a ball, or I'm not gonna be able to handle it, not a problem. That's exactly how it should be. That's why we're putting it into our glass bowl. And we're just going to, that we have oiled, and oil it well. Don't be stingy with the oil because you don't want this to stick. And to solidify this dough, we're going to do something we don't often do with bread doughs, is we're going to pop it in the fridge after we get it into this glass bowl for a couple hours, at least 2 hours. All right, it's the only way this dough is going to be workable. But it's a beautiful, soft, sweet dough. You will love it. You can use it for regular cinnamon buns, or, and I do actually, my regular cinnamon bun recipe. I use this dough. I actually also use this dough for my poppy seed rolls, which I will actually probably be doing a video on that in the next month or so. I will be making those. So that's it. We're going to cover this in some plastic wrap and pop it in the fridge for a minimum of 2 hours. So we'll be back in 2 hours. Okay, so we've left the dough in the refrigerator for, actually this was closer to 3 hours. You can actually leave this up to a couple days if you don't want to make them right away. Minimum is 2 hours. I was just busy doing things, and here we are 3 hours later. Now I've taken it out. We're not going to do anything with it yet. We're going to make the filling, which, as I said, is going to be a cream cheese filling. So I've got 8-ounce package of cream cheese in a bowl, ready to go right here. Hopefully this will stay right there. And what we need is 1/3 of a cup sugar. Just pour that right in. 1 egg. And we're going to grab a teaspoon of vanilla. So there's our teaspoon of vanilla. And we're going to just give this a mix together. Just going to use this to soften it so it doesn't go flying everywhere at first, because cream cheese does have a tendency to do that. There we go. And just till this is creamy. All right, and ready for spreading. So I'm just going to keep mixing that until it is smooth. As you can see, it's beautiful and creamy, and I can just give that a stop. Pop this out. Actually, before we start the rolling out the dough, we have one more step because we're doing the cream cheese and pumpkin. So we've got 1 cup of brown sugar here, and I've got 2 teaspoons of pumpkin spice. You can put more or less depending on your taste. You just mix that through so it's nice and even through the brown sugar. This is going to give, we're going to sprinkle this on top of the cream cheese once we put that on there. Just like that. You want to make sure it's nice and even. You can smell the pumpkin spice. It smells amazing through here. There we go. That looks nice and even through there. We'll put this aside, and now we're going to get our countertop ready for rolling out the dough. Okay, so we've got our board here, which is what I will be using to roll out the dough. You want to flour your rolling pin, and that's what I usually do. I just sprinkle the dough on, the flour on, and then roll my rolling pin through it, and then just get this better distributed right across there. And even though we put this in the refrigerator, it did rise and it's nice and stiff. We'll just take it right out of here. There we go. We're just going to put a couple kneads into it just to get any additional air out, as well as make it a little easier for us to roll it out because it's still very cold, even though I pulled it out just before we started fixing the fillings. There we go. Oh, and it feels beautiful, and it looks super silky, just the way it should. It's going to make this into a bit of a rectangle. Put some more flour underneath it and just press it down. Make it easier for us to roll it out into a nice big rectangle. And there we go. Okay, so we've got this rolled out to a nice rectangle. It's roughly about 14 by 18. So 14 inches by 18 inches. And we just grab our cream cheese that we mixed up. You grab a spoon and spread this across the dough. Just pour it all on here. There we go. So that's our cream cheese on there, and you're just going to use this spatula to spread this evenly across your dough. So this will be your right to the ends. So we can use all of this dough for, I leave one end with a little bit less just because right over here, because that's where I'm going to seal it. And I don't want tons to be pouring out. So we go, you leave about an inch, roughly, give or take. At the end, go right to the sides, as far over as you can, right to the edges there. There we go. Make it as even as possible. Okay, we'll slip that aside. And now we have our pumpkin and sugar. And we're just going to sprinkle this liberally across. So this cream cheese is well covered, just like that. Hopefully you can see all of this. There we go. Now, if you don't want it this much, because there's quite a large coating of the sugar, you can cut it down to, 3/4 of a cup of sugar or half, depending on what you like. And then we're just going to slowly start to roll this up. This dough is actually a beautiful dough, super soft, but so pliable. Just get all of this right over there. So we've got a nice little log. So what I've done in the quickest, easiest way, without ruining the roll, I use string to cut it. I've also got my 9 by 13 pan prepared, which is greased on the sides and some parchment paper on the bottom. Makes life so much easier to take these out later. You definitely want to grease the sides and use the parchment paper if you've got it. Otherwise, just grease the entire thing. And so with the string, we just go in and you've got about just a little bit over an inch, and we just do that. And look at that perfect cut. We pop that in to our dish right there, just like that. And we will line them up as we go. Oops, sticking to my finger. We've got them in our dish. We're just going to cover it with a clean cloth and let them rise for about an hour. Okay, so they have risen for an hour. I have just preheated I turned on the oven to preheat for 350 degrees. So we'll pop them in there for roughly 25 to 30 minutes until they're nicely golden brown. And just as we're getting close to the end of that, we will make the glaze we're going to put on. The buns are in the oven and they smell incredible. So while they're finishing up baking, let's get the icing done for them. So I've got 1 cup of icing sugar here. I am going to add a teaspoon of vanilla, and I've got 2 tablespoons of melted butter here that I let sit it to cool. And we just pour that in, and then let's give this a stir. This is going to be a really creamy icing. A little bit, no, it's not. I'm going to add some milk, and just so that it's good enough for drizzling, I'm just going to put a few drops, not much, because it doesn't take much to get this all going together. And that's why you leave the milk till after, because you don't want it to be runny, but you don't want it to be too thick either, right? So it's the easiest way to get the adjustments that you need. And it's all slowly, just a tad bit more. There's no exact measure because it will be different for everybody. And each time, it's always easier just to add a tiny, tiny little bit as you go and get it to the consistency you want. Because you want to be able to just drizzle this over the top. You see how that will nicely, I'll be able to drizzle that very well on my buns once they're out. So they just came out of the oven. Don't they look incredible? They smell incredible. It took a little longer than I had mentioned. So they were in the oven for about 30 minutes, probably 31 minutes to get them to this golden brown. And you do want them, and you want to make sure that they're baked right through. So we've got our glaze ready. Just get a scoop of it, and we're going to just drizzle it right across all of the buns while they're still hot, just still piping hot right out of the oven. I'm going to do about, probably a little bit more than half, and then I will do them again when they cool with the glaze, and I'll just let them cool before we cut them out of here, and then we'll take a look. Okay, so they have cooled. I put the rest of the glaze on, and here we have our first piece. It came out a little messy. I didn't pull it out, cut it well enough, but let's give it a try. Mm. Mm. Oh my God, that's so good. Anyway, I hope you try it, and let me know what you think. Cheers.